In the previous session, we have seen about principles of management which was propounded by Henry Fayol till unity of direction. In this session, we are going to see the remaining principles. So, we have learned till what is principle of unity of direction. The next principle which is to be discussed is subordination of individual interest to general interest. The principle itself says what it is. Interest of organization should be given priority rather than interest of an individual. Interest of any individual within the organization, that is employee. Employee interest is not to be given priority. Priority must be always for the interest of the organization. That should take priority. Or interest of company to supersede interest. Supersede means must go above or must be above the interest of any other employee, individual employee. And that is because of the reason that larger interest of workers and stakeholders are more important. It is not individual employees' interest, it is always interest of organization to be considered, because that is a larger interest, that is a greater interest. So, there the principle says that a priority must be given for the interest of the organization. In whatever cases it may come, interest of organization is to be considered first. In turn, it will fulfill the requirement, fulfill the need, fulfill the interest of an employee. That is what Henry Fayol is trying to say. Next principle we have to discuss is about remuneration of employees. Remuneration of employees. Remuneration means the total pay, overall pay and compensation given to the employee. The overall pay and compensation given to the employee is termed as remuneration. And when we are fixing remuneration, it should be fair for organization and employee. It must be fair for organization and employee. And when how it is to be fair for organization and employee? Regarding employee, what we can say is that it must give a reasonable, at least a reasonable standard of living. That means the remuneration paid must give them a capacity to maintain at least a reasonable standard of living. Whereas when it is coming to organization, organization must have capacity to pay that remuneration. That means organization must get return at least above that in order to handle that. So, it must be within the paying capacity of the organization. Organization must have profit enough to pay for it. So, that is what is being said. It should be fair for both employee and organization. And when it is fair for employee and organization, congenial atmosphere, good relationship can be maintained within an organization. The atmosphere of working, atmosphere of comfortability, atmosphere of understanding and faithfulness, all these things can be there, and there can be good relations between. For the work done, if employee is getting paid and organization is having enough capacity to pay for it, it can create a good relation. Otherwise, there can be problems within the organization. So, basically remuneration means overall pay and compensation made to the employees of an organization, and it must be fair for both organization and employee. Next principle is principle of centralization and decentralization. Principle of centralization and decentralization. What is centralization? Centralization is basically, this is the base of the centralization and decentralization is decision making power. When the decision making power is within the hands of few, that is called centralization, or in hands of a particular person. For everything and anything, we have to go to that authority or some few number of persons. That is called centralization. All decisions will be taken by a particular person. For everything, we have to go to that top level management. That is called a centralization. So, decision making power in the hands of few or anyone, we can call it as centralization. But when decision making power is in hands of many, that means the power to take decision is dispersed within the organization. It is shared with almost everyone in the organization. We have to call it decentralization. Decentralization. So, centralization and decentralization. What is said in this principle? According to this principle, Henry Fayol is saying that in certain events there needs centralization, in certain events there needs decentralization. That is why there is a need to balance subordinate involvement. In everything and anything, subordinate cannot be involved. Decision making is very difficult. But in certain areas, manager's power is to be retained. Certain areas, employees must be given participation. So, that has to be balanced within an organization. According to the requirement, centralization and decentralization is to be used in an organization. That is what is said in this principle. Coming on to next principle, the principle of scalar chain. Principle of scalar chain. What is scalar chain? Scalar chain is formal lines of authority from highest to lowest rank. It is a formal line of authority which is showing the position of each managers within an organization, who is superior, who is subordinate to that. So, that line of authority from highest to lowest rank, and this is used in order to do formal communication. That means, if F want to communicate something to N, according to scalar chain, F has to convey to E, E has to convey to D, D has to convey to C, C has to convey to B, B to A to J, J to K, K to M, M to N. So, K to L and L to M and to N. So, that is a method, it is a formal way. In no area, Fayol is saying that communication has to follow this particular path, it must not be broken. But there can be situations where some message is to be passed urgent. For example, F and N are persons who are working in the same level. So, as according to that, it has to travel all the way from F to pass through many persons and reach N. So, there can be a communication delay. So, if there is an urgency, F is permitted to take a shorter route. This formal line can be bypassed. It is taking a shorter route, and that shorter route is called as gangplank. In order to avoid communication delay, the shorter route is taken, and that shorter route is known as gangplank. So, we are talking about principle of scalar chain, that is formal line of authority from formal line of authority from highest to lowest rank in an organization and used for formal communication. According to Fayol's principle, this formal line is to be followed in communication. But when an urgency arises, to avoid communication delay, short route can be taken, that is called gangplank. Next principle is principle of order. What is order? Order means a place for everything and everything at its place. When things are arranged, when we say arranged, each thing is put at a place where it is to be. So, a place for everything and everything at its place, that is the principle of order saying. He said that it is meaning orderliness, it is to be maintained in the proper manner. And Fayol is saying that if people and materials are at a suitable places and it is available at appropriate time, it gives a maximum efficiency. When things are being arranged, when we know that each and everything is at particular place, we can easily get it. There is no time delay. So, efficiency can be maintained, will lead to increased productivity and efficiency. Productivity can be maintained, there is no time delay, there is no wastage, everything is managed properly. At a time we can get it, we know where it is kept, we need not go in search of it. So, a place for everything and everything at its place, that is what principle of order is saying about. Next principle is principle of equity. Principle of equity. considering everyone equal, but you can have a confusion regarding that. A person with the highest qualification, a person in the position of manager, a person in the position of employee, we cannot talk about equity. According to the position, they must be considered fairly. Fair treatment to all employees. Fair treatment to all employees. Emphasis on kindness and justice in behavior of managers towards workers. Two employees of same level is to be considered equal. Within their capacity, they have to consider equal. They have to be treated equal. They have to be treated in a fair manner. There must be justice. Two persons having same qualification doing the same job must be paid same salary. But a person who is working as an employee and a person who is working as manager, they cannot demand, they cannot say that they must get the same salary. That is not what is meant by equity. Within the capacities, they must be treated fairly. There must be no discrimination. There must be no discrimination against anyone on the basis of color, region, or habits, or whatever be, dress, or whatever be. There must be no discrimination. Kindness must be there, justice must be there to each and every employee, fair treatment must be there. And when this equity is being maintained, it ensures loyalty. When employees are feeling that they are considered, they are treated in a fair manner, automatically their loyalty towards company, the organization will be better, and they will be devoted in their work. They will be putting 100% to the work what they are doing. So, principle of equity, considering everyone equal within the capacities they are holding, or considering giving fair treatment to everyone. Next principle is stability of personnel. It is also called as stability of tenure. Stability of tenure. In this principle, Henry Fayol is saying that the turnover, employee turnover, that means employee moving out of the organization, is to be reduced. With the help of this principle, the employee turnover is to be brought down, so as to make sure that organization is working in proper manner. One employee coming today, if they are leaving within 1 month, we have to go in search of another employee and train them with all these things. It can create a lot of trouble for the organization. So, employee turnover is to be reduced. For that, according to the principle, Henry Fayol is saying that personnel should be selected and appointed after rigorous procedure. A person who has been taken for a job, he must be taken not just simply by seeing. We have to analyze what are his capacities, what are his qualities, what all things he know. All these things has to be made clear, or has to be seen, and he may has to undergo test, he may has to answer questions, he may have to appear for interviews. So, through a rigorous procedure, it has to be taken. The persons has to be taken for a particular job, whether he has knowledge in that area, whether he was aware of that job, whether he has passion to do that job. All these things are to be considered. That's why personnel should be selected and appointed after due and rigorous procedure. And another thing is that, according to this principle, Henry Fayol is saying that once an employee is selected, he must be kept in the position for a minimum tenure, say 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. He must be kept in the position, because then only we can have a judgment whether he can give results or not. A person who is appointed today, if he is moved to another department the next day, or next week, or next month, we will not be able to judge whether employee is efficient or not. So, that's why Fayol is saying that person should be kept, a selected person should be kept in the position for a minimum tenure, and he must be given chance to show results. If he is not giving results, he can be handled in the appropriate manner. So, that is another principle. Coming on to the next principle, principle of initiative. Principle of initiative. What is initiative? Taking first step with the self-motivation. I am feeling that this particular thing can be done in a different manner, and I am trying to do that without anybody compelling me. So that is why it is said that it is first step with the self motivation. If a person is intelligent enough, he or she may find a better way of doing job, better ways of doing job. They will try to bring in better methods of doing job, better methods of handling activities. So taking first step with self motivation, without anybody asking them to do so, they will find out better methods, better ways of doing jobs. And when we are saying that bringing new ideas, bringing new way of doing things, it must not be against the established ideas, established practices. Within the practices, if we are able to bring something new, not going against the practices, very rarely going against the practice can be there, but usually within the practices, if we can introduce something new, that is called initiative. And for initiative, we say that, or Fayol say that employee suggestions to be, there must be employee suggestion system within the organization, and the suggestions is to be considered if it is valid, if it is better for the organization, it is to be considered. Employee suggestions are to be encouraged, and it should be rewarded too. It should be acknowledged, it should be rewarded. Then only employee will feel to give better suggestions. So taking first step with self motivation is the principle of initiative. And coming on to the last principle, that is principle of esprit de corps. Esprit de corps means unity is strength. Unity is strength. Esprit de corps. Esprit de corps is talking about team spirit of unity and harmony among employees. That means there must be unity among employees. There must be a connection with each and every employee of an organization. And for that, managers have to replace I with we in all the conversations they are making. Managers must not make them feel that they are somebody away from them. They are together with them. So every conversation, instead of saying I, manager must use the word we. That makes a feeling of unity, that makes a feeling of harmony, a spirit of mutual trust and belongingness. When this method is instead of I, if manager is using we, there can be a unity of a mutual trust. They will feel belongingness, they will feel that it is their company, otherwise they will feel that it is manager's company. So that we is to be brought in, and when there is a mutual trust, when employee is trusting manager, manager is trusting employee, when employee is feeling a belongingness, they will do the work in better manner, they will do the work with loyalty, so that punishments can be reduced, using of punishments can be reduced, minimized use of penalties. So we have gone through all the 14 principles put forward by Henry Fayol.